You've eaten Gotham's wealth, its spirit, but your feast is nearly over.
This is not my home. It's an operating table. And I'm the surgeon. Why aren't you laughing?
From this moment on, none of you are safe.
Welcome to the Batman Book Club podcast exploring the Dark Knight Library. I'm your host, Ryan Lauer. Thank you for listening to episode 233. Jon Sommariva. Yes, you've heard that name before on this show. It's been a long time. But finally, he is back. I have the artist who's gotten to work on some of my favorite things. He was on here on this show way back in episode 31 in November of 2020. Ugh,
Wow.
I was a child. I was a child then. He was the artist. He was on to talk about Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles adventures. He's also the artist of the newly collected and released DC Multiversus. It's Uncle Jon himself, Jon Sommariva. Jon, thanks for coming back and talking to me, sir.
Thank you. Hey, look, it's good to see you again. I got to check in on my nephew, every 5 years.
Right.
That's
every 5 years, yeah. That's why he's the best uncle.
And all those presents that I send every year.
Yep. Hey, I got some. You can see it right back here.
Actually, yeah, you did.
And then the
That's
Christmas ones behind it. The smaller one of all four of the turtles. Is it Chibi or Chibi?
Chibi. I don't know. Chibi. I think it's a Japanese word, so however they would say it.
I've got
you
that.
Can go for it.
Not up in here. So yeah, Uncle Jon's sending gifts. I'm well taken care of.
I have a little confession to make, actually. So just before we started talking here, I was scrolling past some of our old messages there.
Yeah.
And I remembered that our birthday's actually on the same day. We're birthday twins.
That's right.
And but then on the last year, I think you wished me happy birthday, and I was very rude and had completely forgotten. And all I said was thank you. So
No.
I felt terrible about that. So happy belated birthday for last November.
I mean, I'm getting close to a half birthday, right? Do people have those?
Yeah.
So you're telling me happy half birthday. So thanks. I appreciate that. But I think you did it you did it like the year before or something too. So it's like we don't even think about it, and we end up one of us sends a message to the other. So look at that. We're hold on, let me do the right math. We're 15 hours apart, but we remember each other's birthdays. That's all that matters.
That's family.
Yeah, exactly. I recorded with writer and artist Sean Murphy, and he said to me that, because I talked about how I was able to speak with you, and he said Jon Sommariva is the meanest person I've ever met in comics. No, wait. No, he said the nicest. That's right. He said the nicest person in comics. Do you care to comment on that, Jon, at all?
Well, I don't know about that side of it, but Sean is an incredible, amazing talent, and somebody that I met very, very early on, actually, before I'd even broken into comics. We had a little flicking studio together there for actually a couple of online studios that Sean and I were a part of together. And he was always just that dude that was head and shoulders above everybody already, and just a very naturally gifted, talented person, and
that's cool.
Yeah, I love catching up with him from time to time, and we always have a good laugh and tell some funny stories and all of that. So that's cool. And I treat him very badly. Obviously, I'm a mean guy. But...
Oh yes, so bad. It's so crazy to me of even. So here you go. Like, obviously you live in Australia, and yet like how worldwide like the comic industry is, and yet somehow it's also it seems so small that you have somebody. Sean lives in the Northeast, and you're in Northeast of North America, and you're in Australia, and yet you're like, oh yeah, I knew Sean before like I really broke into comics. Like, everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, so here we go, Uncle Jon stories.
Yes,
time again, but
gather around, kids.
Going back a good 20 years when the internet was in the heyday of the message boards and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I just met a whole bunch of these guys. We were all up and coming. We were all hungry. We just wanted to show off our work, online. And just some of the guys that I became friends with back then and I have remained friends with to this day, they're just some of the biggest names that you would know in the industry today. And it's just that whole generation that we had, and we all broke in through uh, gaining a following online, which was kind of exciting. And what we continue to do more or less as much as we can with social media without these algorithms and
Yeah.
big powerful guys squishing us down and not letting our art be seen. But you try and get around it as much as you can.
Yeah. I mean, that's a
But
cool, like a unity kind of thing too. I think, you were all in the trenches together of,
yeah,
working.
totally. And there was, there's just it was an amazing thing to see each one of us breaking in, one
Yeah.
after the other and actually getting in. And I've supported all of these guys' work from the very beginning, and so I've got all the first titles that each of us have worked on, and all the
Awesome.
comic books and all that sort of thing, and just always kept up with what everyone's doing. And I mean, Sean's just one of those guys that you got to create his own version of Batman, and how
Yeah.
exciting is that? And it's been really cool to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was trying to think. I know because I think I shared with you because his series Plot Holes you got to do a variant cover for, and I picked that up.
Yep.
Um, I'm trying to think when all I messaged you because I forget. Let's get into otherwise we're gonna be here for like hours. DC Multiversus because I was trying to track down and see because you and I had you and I occasionally will send a message back and forth and you'd mentioned about how like you've got something Batman cooking
Mm,
and I'm never
mm,
gonna press and be like tell me please. I'm like okay and you're like I'll when it's out there, then let's figure out when we can talk about it or whatever. When, like, I can't find when that even happened because I feel like I was waiting
right.
forever to find out what it is that you're doing that involved
Yeah.
Batman.
Yeah. So okay, so I finished working on Neverlanders,
Hmm.
and we had planned to work on book two of Neverlanders, Tom Taylor and I. And then this offer came along from DC Comics to work on this book, which ended up being Multiverses. And I just saw it as a really cool opportunity to work on something that it had great potential in that we've seen what can happen with a lot of these comics that are tied in with computer games and that sort of
Hmm.
thing. So it was a bit of a gamble on my part in that I just wanted to work on this property which I knew was going to have all these really cool characters in it. There was that carrot dangled in front of me of you're going to get to draw the Iron Giant and Game of Thrones characters and just
Yeah.
Harry Potter, like all of these really crazy characters that we hadn't really seen done in that sort of style in comics. And so I accepted the job, and this would have been I want to say, oh god, I don't know, when was it? Like I was going to guess 2018, but it couldn't have been that far back. But anyway, it was a couple of years before, and then we began working on the project. And then as things happened, the game was released. It needed a bit of work,
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
multiverse game. So it kind of went away for like a year, and I basically had finished this project, and it just sat there for almost a year, without actually being published. And so that's why I would have told you
Ugh.
about it so long before. And a lot of people knew that I was working on this thing because I'd sort of been teasing it along the way while I was working on it. And then people were asking me, "Hey, what happened to that DC thing that you were working on?"
What
Like,
about
I
your
don't know, I don't
Batman?
know. Well,
Where is he?
and then every now and then we'd get an update from our editors saying, "Hey guys, good news! We've got a release date now, or there's been a bit of movement on this and that." And the unfortunate side of it is that there never was any DLC content that was actually released as a tie-in with the game in the end, and the book just was what it was.
Yeah.
The book came out and stood on its own merits for better or worse or whatever it is, and um, it was definitely a very fun project and a unique one for me, and it had
Sure.
its really cool challenges in terms of characters that I'd never drawn before and that sort of thing, which I'm sure we can chat
Oh,
about
oh
more
yeah.
and that sort of thing. But
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
The writer here, Brian Miller, did you know him prior to this?
no, I didn't know him, or I wasn't familiar with his work either until we started working together.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously since we've chatted a fair bit here and there, and
Yeah.
we used to talk quite a bit while we were working on the project, and I'd ask questions here and there and that sort of thing. And I think he just really nailed the tone. He's got a really good sense of humor for, these very exaggerated, over the top, cartoony characters. And there was jokes in there that I remember getting the script and drawing it and kind of going, man, are people gonna even understand what this is? Like, I just didn't feel, maybe I didn't give people enough credit, I guess, I don't know. But then when those jokes came out and they really landed, and I was like, Brian knew what he was doing. He's just, good at this. And luckily I was able to execute it well. So like I said, I would say that we pretty much, any joke that we told in there did land, and there was nothing in there that people were like, what the hell was that? What's that supposed to mean? Or I'm confused or anything like that. So that's a good thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. So did he, when it was presented to you, was the story already worked out, or was it I'm always curious of when the artist gets involved, the story's already here and here you go, or if it starts to become more collaborative of figuring out the story. If you don't have a story credit, I understand, like, you probably aren't as involved, but what was that like for you two?
Yeah, so on this particular project, I was just given the scripts. I didn't really have much input at all in the actual story side of things. I did see the early pictures and outlines for what the issues were going to be, which is that's where originally we were going to be using a lot more of the characters that appear in the game, and then the reality of licenses and who you can use or who you can't use and all of that sort of set in, and it a lot of those characters got taken out of the story, which was kind of not the best, but it's the way it goes. And Brian, I mean, hats off to him, because it was really difficult. He had to really juggle a lot of that, and there was one particular character who was a major character that we thought we were going to use throughout the whole series. He was going to be sort of our big bad, and it turned out we were only allowed to use him on one page in the whole series at the end of the day. So we kind of had to pivot a little bit and put a different character in, which we ended up using Brainiac more as that role for that character. But this is just the reality of that sort of a project, and with that sort of a scope, and hopefully people don't see all the little pieces of sticky tape and all of that we've used to patch it all back together.
I mean, I certainly did, and I know that there's some things that I'm trying to think what joke. There was a joke that I didn't get, and that's not to mean as if like I'm all the one, or I'm the smartest guy in the room, or sometimes I'm just really dumb. And we can get to which one that is, but let's. You were talking about characters and the juggling of characters. It's structured. The two that stand out, no, it's the three that stand out to me like so well in the revealing the story structure and how you end up paying that off is turning in that first issue, and it's Bugs there at the end. The next issue, when Flash shows up at the burger joint, and then it's turn the page and there's Shaggy and Scooby, because I'm a massive Scooby-Doo fan, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. And then you go Wonder Woman's in Africa, and then it's like, oh, it's Gorilla Grodd, and it's the gorillas, and they're flying. Of course, the Wicked Witch of the West would be the one that has the flying, and I'm like, oh my, like the way those were structured of each, that's why they're at the front of my memory of those were the ones that had the biggest awesome reveal on my end of reading those.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's really cool. Yeah. So, the story starts out and we're sort of hinting at these characters that are going to be appearing from another universe, and we use that motif of the symbols, the three icons. And so that was actually really fun to come up with those icons. There's one representing Steven Universe, and there's one, the Wicked Witch, and the other one's the Rabbit. And I really went and studied a whole bunch of Kirby and Fourth World and that sort of artwork, because believe it or not, I wasn't that familiar with Kirby's stuff. As much of a legend as he is, it just wasn't art that appealed to me as a kid, and I was a stupid dumb kid for that. I acknowledge this. And then once I started looking into it, I was absolutely blown away. I was like, okay, I see why this guy is the legend that he is, and just the costume designs that he did were just flawless and iconic,
Yeah.
one after the other. He created what we know of as a superhero look, and I think we in the industry today could still go back and learn a lot from that, because a lot
Yeah.
of the redesigns you see there, I think, a little too over designed and complicated these days. But anyway, I went back and I was really looking at this Kirby fourth wall stuff and a lot of the tech that he would draw, and so I used a lot of those shapes in those icons that you see.
Mm-hmm.
And then the reveals were quite fun as they came along. And I think I remember reading online as the issues were coming out and people were trying to guess who could that character be, who's this character, and it was good because it wasn't so obvious that everybody was guessing 100% what it was. And
Sure.
we would get a lot of speculation of, that means that this character is going to appear in the game, and it means this and it means that, and it was kind of fun seeing people go back and forth and argue about this. And there was the temptation every now and then to get on there and go, hey, idiot, you don't know what you're talking about.
Did you have, I'm trying to figure out the timeline. I have no experience with Multiversus with the game. And I'm trying to think when roughly, I don't need the exact day and time, but roughly from like what year, like what quarter of what year did you start and when were you done drawing? Roughly?
Well, the actual drawing itself was very quick because I was doing it
Okay.
as a monthly book. And I was keeping up with the deadlines for the most part. I think during issue 5, I got really sick. Like I just copped something that was going around,
Yeah.
whatever it was, and a respiratory thing, and I had that for about 8 weeks, and
Dang.
like it was pretty full on. Like I was, you know, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd feel fine, and I'd go through my workday, and by 5 or 6 p.m. I just would have fever and sweating and all that kind of stuff. Not that we need to get into that too much, but it was really difficult. So I finally got to a point which I've never really done before, where I emailed the editors and I said, guys, I'm just feeling really, really sick at the moment. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. And they go, oh, dude, you are so far ahead at the moment that just take a couple of weeks off if you need to recover.
Yeah.
And it was really good because I was able to just have I just had some rest, I had some sleep,
Yeah.
and got back to normal, which was really good. I don't know if this is just old man shit or what, but
I mean,
I needed
everybody's
it.
getting it. Like, it's
Yeah.
worldwide, I guess, because where you are and where I'm at, and I know people have the same stuff. It's just, it has its cycle, hits
Yeah,
people,
see,
and it's like hits them hard, and then they rebound. So I don't know.
I know our colorist, he was going through something similar as well. So because we were talking, and he had almost the exact same thing. And I don't know if this is just like a side effect of COVID. Is it a
Sure.
long COVID thing? And so now when you get a respiratory thing, it just lasts longer, or have the bugs evolved? From all the antibiotics that we've been taking. I got no idea, but
It's these Comic Cons. That's what's doing it. Because I heard about, somebody told me when I went to the Chicago one, and I was completely fine. About 2 days later, and something was just
yeah,
hit me hard, and somebody's like, "Oh yeah, well yeah, you got the con bug." I'm like,
yeah,
"What?" They're like,
Concrete,
"Yeah, you
yeah,
go, you get the con crud." He didn't say the bug. That's right, the con crud. He's like, "It happens,
yeah.
but think about it. You're in a small space with tons of people, passing tons of people. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna get something." I'm like, "Okay, good to know for the future."
Yeah, yeah. All those hands that were shaking, and then you
Yeah,
like stuff burgers in your mouth, and who knows? Like
yeah.
it's
Shake a
it's
hand,
prime.
stuff a
It's
burger,
prime for
shake
getting.
another hand. Share that burger with your hand to somebody else. Yeah,
That's it.
that's how we do it. I don't know if that's how you do it over there.
Totally. I
So
love when people are stuffing a burger in my mouth.
exactly.
Hello,
The
John.
there's a lot of good to know if I'm ever able to go to a con where you're at, which I think so the reason that I brought you up and recorded with Sean because I think it was when did you go to a Boston Comic Con or something on the
Not
in
not
no
Boston. I was at in New Hampshire. I went
maybe
to
New
New
Hampshire
Hampshire.
okay because
Yeah,
it
which is close
was
to there.
he'd posted a picture I think of where where him and some others and you were one of them at a bar or something like that about at whatever con I think I was like oh damn it, John was in the States again, and I cannot make it there. And you were somewhere else. And do you come to the U.S. often for conventions?
Not that often, not as often
Okay.
as I'd like. I, especially during the whole pandemic, it's sort of
Yeah.
I hadn't been back there for a good 5 years or more. And then just yeah, so 2 years ago was the first time I returned. I did this New
Okay.
Hampshire show because they invited me to come along to Granite, which was it's quite a Ninja Turtles heavy convention, so they know my stuff over there and got me to come over. And then last year was actually the 40th anniversary of the Turtles, and so they got me to come back, and that show was amazing. It was just everybody who's the who's who of that's drawn comics basically was there. Unfortunately, I think Peter Laird, he was not feeling up to it, so he didn't show up, but he did the year before, which was
Gotcha.
really cool. And I'm actually going again this year, so I'll be back at Granite again in September, and possibly doing another show in Orlando, I think, the weekend after that. So yeah, I'll
Start
make it a
saving my
couple of
money. Is that what you're
appearances.
saying? Start going on a road trip. Save. All right, noted.
Yeah, the
Very
the
very
Orlando show I
cool.
think is more of a smaller show. It's not like this a massive megacon or anything like that. So
Hmm.
you don't have to worry about any con crowd or bugs.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I don't
And I can get close enough to you to feed you a cheeseburger.
know.
Tell me what you want on it,
Where,
John. I'll
where
get it for you.
whereabouts are you based again?
I'm in Indiana,
Indiana.
so
Okay.
Midwest, sort
Midway.
of
Oh, okay, okay.
middle of the country, but a little east of the middle of the country.
Right, right, right. Yeah. So
So Chicago's
last
3 hours for
okay,
me.
gotcha. Yeah. So maybe what you were thinking of was last year I was in Kansas, and I also did a store signing in Kansas, which we sort of did like a bit of a charity thing there, and quite a few. I'm pretty sure there was a guy that drove from Indiana actually. So is
Was
that
it
like a
me?
5 hour drive to Kansas, something like that?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
he's
yeah, it'd be yeah. I'm doing doing this math in my head, and I think so because I've been to Kansas before, driven, and I think that sounds about right from where I'm at. It's about 5 hours,
yeah,
so I could have done it.
yeah,
What the hell's wrong with me? Jeez, you could like you fly, travel 15 hours or whatever it is, and I
yeah.
can't just get in my car.
That's right.
I apologize.
I did all the main work there. You just have to do a little. It's
You did the
the
heavy
ten
lifting.
percent, you know.
I apologize. I'll do
That's all
better.
good.
You're giving
We'll
me
do
like
it
a
in the future.
5 month, yeah, you're giving me like a 5 month heads up right now or 6 months. Like, I'm gonna be there, make it happen. And Disney
Yeah, all
World's in
right.
Orlando also, and I love
Well,
Disney World.
that's the main reason we're going there.
Yeah.
I owe my son a trip there because we took him there when he was almost 1 year old. So
Oh.
he's got all these photos of being there, but he doesn't remember any of it. And it's
Yeah.
just as bad as not. It's probably worse than having never been at all because you know you
Yeah.
were there, but you didn't get to enjoy it. So he's the right age now to really enjoy that sort of thing. So
That'd be great.
hoping to take him there, and yeah,
Oh,
that'd
that'd
be
be
cool.
awesome. So something about I may have told you this when we talked 4.5 years ago. But like your style is always fun, which you know your style better than anybody else does. But as just as a reader, and when I read the Batman Ninja Turtles, I'd never talked to you before or anything, but I dug your style, and it's just so much fun. Neverlanders is a really good, fun story, and so it just seems with this book when it was finally announced, and I saw like this is what John's been sitting on for decades. It is just like, oh, this is I think I know the vibe of what, I'm going to be seeing here. And it flat out was, but it was also different than the two stories I just mentioned of Neverlanders and Turtles because of the characters, because of the settings, because of visiting these iconic locations. We'll get to Batman since this is a Batman show, but
Mm,
getting the Batcave, blending the animated series like on that the car chase with with Harley and them, and then also
mm,
ending up in the Fortress of Solitude and putting Brainiac and the Wicked Witch in the whatever they're called from the Superman, is it Superman 2? Yeah, I think
yeah,
where
I
those
don't
are
know.
and everything. It's just how did they just let you cut loose? It just whatever you wanted to do as long as
Mm,
you're it's like a very broad question, I know. Um, clearly they sought you out for this for a reason, probably for your style, knowing that this book's going to be fun. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know where I went with my question.
Well,
You can
look,
say whatever
I
you
can
want.
tell you with the thinking behind the style of it was I was trying to be true to the style of the game, obviously.
Yeah.
The game has a style which is very I don't know, how would you put it, like the it blends well with what I do basically.
Hmm.
And we're in the same ballpark. And shout out to the design team on Multiversus, because I think they did that. I think the art of the game was actually its best aspect. And so really I was just trying to take those designs and do them in my style. And I think the game itself sort of takes a little bit from the animated world, but it's not full on 100% the Bruce Timm version of
Yeah.
the animated DC stuff. And it takes from the comics as well, so you do get to blend a little bit of the two. So I can still flex a little bit on the comic book side of things, which is quite fun. And yeah, that was really it. In terms of those little things that you're talking about, like I don't know what they're called, either the spinning rings,
Yeah. The
donut
spinning
ring
rings.
things,
Yeah.
that imprison people. Yeah, those all of those little bits of lore and Easter eggs and things like that. I would give 95% of the credit to Brian putting those
Okay.
in the scripts, because he really did the research, and I had to go and look a lot of this stuff up. I wasn't very familiar with it myself, and so there's things there, like there's a particular Superman vehicle which is this
Yes.
really weird looking plane that has these two fists on the
Fists.
side of it.
Yeah. I think that was a superpowers because
Okay.
they've uh redone them and re-released those like in updated if you want on a whole new line of toys. And I remember seeing that it was released maybe 2 years ago or something, and it's based
Okay.
off of I think a line in the 70s or 80s or something
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, that was another one in here too. I was like, oh my gosh, look at that, that's a deep pull.
There's a
Excellent.
lot, yeah, a lot of those deep cuts are in there, and that a lot of that stuff is just Brian. I mean, yeah, I don't know if maybe this is the joke that you didn't get. I'm not sure, but there's a bit
Okay.
where, so you mentioned the car chase scene. That's probably my favorite sequence. They're my favorite
Oh,
pages
cool.
out of the whole book, I think. Just because I'd never really drawn a full on car chase before, and I feel like I just really enjoyed doing the panel to panel of where the vehicles are at each different time, and you could really feel that sensation of the motion of what's going on. And the Batwing is chasing Harley's little
Hmm.
convertible, and all of that sort of stuff. And anyway, there's one part in there where Harley has to make a decision. She can't remember which button to press on the dashboard of her vehicle to release this torpedo bomb that blows up the Batwing, or the Batjet,
Hmm.
Batplane, whatever you call it. And there's a meme that's a meme that people
Hmm.
know of, which is a guy, and he's sweating it out, making a decision, which button do I press, and people put whatever different decision they have to make, as a thing. And so we did our version of that with Harley. And you can kind of see, she's there sweating, holding the handkerchief. Which button do I press?
Uh,
Anyway, that was
I
a
didn't. I'm unaware on that one. So
yeah.
there we go. Was it two
Yeah,
taps for the bat? Oh, one tap for the popo. Was it two taps for the bat? And
yeah,
then death charges. Ah, but
yeah.
okay. Well, there you go. One I didn't even know that I didn't get.
So
Uh,
it would work, but I don't know. Well, see, maybe that's one that totally didn't land, but it works story wise anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But
sure.
people who are familiar with the meme would see that hopefully and go, "Oh,
Well,
okay, that's what."
those are the best ones then because I don't know that it's a fun Easter egg for those who know, but it didn't distract from the story or anything, and it totally worked within the confines of that page and with that scene too of
Yeah,
like it's totally Harley, and like it doesn't disrespect anybody's character or anything, and it's like it's totally a fun page. And I do love that shot that I mentioned too of Gotham City, and you've got the bank from the animated series, you've got the Monarch,
yeah.
marquee and
So
everything
that
like
that
that.
was me. There you
Oh,
go. I get credit for that.
that was all you?
Yeah. I put the I
Excellent.
wanted to put the bank in there from the animated series, and yeah, there
Perfect.
were. Now that I'm thinking back to it, there definitely were little Easter eggs. I mean, I tend to do that a fair bit with my work anyway because I love
Hmm.
seeing that stuff in comics myself. So
Sure.
I like putting it in there. Yeah. So we had the yeah, that's right. It's the bank from the and the Monarch, and then on that same panel, if you look at the two vehicles that are behind Harley's Roadster there. I just drew them that way, and Matt, who I think is very much on the same wavelength as me, the colorist,
Hmm.
he colored them as Optimus Prime and Jazz from Transformers, so which is totally what I had in mind. So
Excellent.
that's like a little secret hidden one. And then I think a few pages later we see where Harley's like swerving around the corner there, and we've got the Simon Trent Memorial Theater.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh,
You
how did
know,
I miss that one?
you would know who that is, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. See, even
Uh,
even hearing the name now, I I know who it is, obviously, because I
mhm.
drew it in there. But I had to look that up and find out what's the name of Grey Ghost. You know?
What was it? There was what else was I gonna say? Oh, so like, okay, so see, that's the stuff that I love. The when we get in like the Bat Cave, is that left up to you? On like Brian says, hey, draw the Bat Cave. So John
Yeah,
draws the Bat Cave and is like, this is what I'm picturing. This is what I imagine.
yeah, yeah, totally. And you know, I'm using references there, obviously, from what we've seen in the past in the comics and all the different iterations that we've seen of that. But specifically using there's a particular screen background from
Hmm.
Multiversus game, and they did a great job there of obviously they have to design a Batcave that's going to work as a 2D platform, you know, fighting game. And but I thought their design was really nice, so I just took elements from that as well. You know, so you'd see the waterfalls using lots of atmospheric fog to push the backgrounds back and that sort of thing. And then I'm using those big round disc sort of platforms, you know, with the big bat symbol on in the middle of it and that sort of
Hmm.
thing. So and obviously the back computer is a big component of that, and we use that for different various things. So that was a sort of key area. But yeah, it's interesting because you don't think about it so much when you're reading the comic. Like if it all works, it's not something that's going to be present in your mind, like what
Yeah.
went into this. But you know, you really have to think about the staging, about where each character is, especially like I'm drawing 13 characters in every panel at some points there, and you got to remember where's this guy, and they all got to be in relation to each other for the story to make sense. But you're also drawing the characters in a particular sequence so that the speech balloons work, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so this is the tricky side of it, but it's also what I find really enjoyable when you're doing the layouts is it's all the figuring out of that stuff, you know, and it's
Yeah.
quite fun to do. Really, it's really fun when it's all flowing and it works, you know.
Sure. Did it,
Yeah.
was there a Batmobile in the game, or did you get to design that?
That one, I believe my editor sent me some references
Okay.
for. They said use this version of the Batmobile, and it's. I mean, if it was left up to me, I would probably always draw the animated version or the 89 version. You know,
Yeah.
with the big jet engine.
Oh yeah.
Um, and but yeah, they sent me that one, and which is that one with that's got the sort of weird bat head on the front of it,
Hmm.
shield sort of thing. And it's actually a really good version of the Batmobile to draw in comics because it's quite rectangular and the shape of it is actually quite easy to draw. So that was it worked out well in the end, I think.
Yeah. Does
Yeah.
that get you how you just said it works because of its shape and being rectangular? Do you look forward to simplicity and some things like that with the Batmobile? And I use
Yeah.
that
Look.
term loosely of simplicity because I can't draw anything. So I'm not saying as if like, oh, this is a piece of cake, right? But rather than extreme, very extreme in detail, but like, man, this is gonna be a son of a
Yeah.
bitch.
Well, so I very very rarely, like I would say, hardly ever use programs like SketchUp or anything like that when I'm drawing. I like to
Hmm.
draw from scratch, and so something that's got low line mileage, as we call it, you know, is better than something that's going to be overcomplicated with lots of angles and where you have to really
Yeah.
work every little tiny thing out. So with that particular vehicle, you could, I think whoever designed it specifically did it in a way where a lot of the elements of the design fall on halves and thirds of those shapes. So when you're drawing in perspective, it's really quite easy to figure out exactly where all the separate bits and pieces are going to land to make it look right and consistent,
Yeah.
And because I like to draw that stuff more organically, I think that's what brings the energy that I bring in my style. That's what you see on there, because then you're able to sort of exaggerate little bits and pieces here and there. There was one particular panel with that Batmobile that I really enjoyed drawing, which was I think it's in the last issue, where Batman's standing on top of the Batmobile, and which was this one here.
Oh yeah, that's a money shot right there.
Yeah, it was like a nice full shot of Batman standing on top of his Batmobile, but it's a little bit being destroyed because Wonder Woman has just somehow picked it up and thrown it through the wall of the Batcave.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another great panel. That's another really fun panel. Did it make you, when you have these other characters, which I don't know how many of them you had drawn before, do you still get excited that Batman's part of your job?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And look, you can really see throughout, even on the covers and throughout the book, I put Batman front and center. I mean,
As he should be.
Flagship guy. I was thinking
Absolutely.
of you guys the whole time,
Oh,
when I was
perfect.
doing
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. As expected. I expected that. Like, oh, Ryan's really gonna like this one.
Yeah.
I'd hope so. But I mean, he looks like the version in that Batman and Ninja Turtles book too. Knowing obviously what you've done before, you've worked with Batman before. I mean, do you know if there was any kind of, hey, adjust your Batman to fit the game more? Because I don't know. In my memory, this looks like the Batman in that Ninja Turtles crossover.
Right. Yeah, well, I think there's going to be similar, just due to being me that's
Sure.
drawing it. But
Yeah.
I with that one, I was definitely in the Turtles book. I was really referencing the Bruce Timm animated version
Yeah.
strictly, whereas in this one, I was really referencing, especially more at the beginning, really referencing the regular skin of Batman that's in the game. That whatever that version is. I mean, he had a really cool design. He had big, chunky feet and big hands and all that sort of stuff. That I really like to draw as well. But yeah, there was never a single moment with any of this book actually that they gave me any, can you redraw this or that type notes. I think there might have been like one or two things where they asked me to change something for clarity's sake. Now that I'm remembering it, but in terms of like the actual drawings and
Yeah.
style and all that stuff, they were 100% behind me and very supportive and just cheering me on, the whole way while I was drawing it, which was really cool. And
Yeah.
it was a really, really enjoyable experience in that way,
Good.
when
Yeah.
when they got your back, and let
Of
you do your
course.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Well, we're talking Batcave, and so this I could end up feeling really stupid. This
Okay.
is where a joke is written that I didn't know what it meant.
All
Maybe
right.
it wasn't a joke. I feel like it was a joke.
Okay.
So they're in the Batcave. So this is, let's see, it says page 113 and 151 because I'm reading it digitally. And Bugs is whispering to, like, they're looking on the back computer where Lois is saying, mysterious drones have begun to gather as the countdown fills the skies. Yada, yada, yada. Bugs whispers to the Wicked Witch, or she says, nice crystal ball. And he says, and Bugs says, if you can wrap your brain around this one, they said it's a liquid crystal. Go to the next page. She scoots her chair back, and then
Yeah.
Scooby says, Ren 80 Re. And then it moves on.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, this time in rereading it, that I'm like sitting and I'm like, I feel like an idiot. I don't know what this means. I
Yeah.
speak
So
Scooby Doo. I don't know what this means.
Okay, so I think what he's trying to say there is 1080p, like as in high
Okay.
res liquid crystal TV monitor, you know.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the Ren Radi Re or whatever it is
Uh-huh.
him saying 1080p.
So I'm an idiot. But there's
Yeah, like
redemption.
I don't
There,
know.
there's redemption because
Ren, he
there's
said Ren 80 Re.
Renedy.
Yeah,
There's I got there Superman busts through walls or something, and I think it's asking Brainiac about how have you never heard about peanuts? And Superman
oh
says,
yeah,
good grief. And Batman says, tell me you said that on purpose. Or something.
yeah,
And Superman's like, said what? I'm like, that's a good one. I like that one.
yeah,
But obviously the big one that I got right away is
yeah.
Bugs' basic instinct joke.
Oh, okay.
My goodness. Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah,
Great. Good stuff.
we almost can't talk about this book now without bringing that one up because it caused a little bit of a stir there for a week or so, you know, which was quite
Yeah.
fun to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll tell you. So when I was drawing that one, that was one of the ones that I was going. I don't know if this is going to land. Like, who the hell's going to remember Basic Instinct? And
Did Brian
we've
have
got a
that?
rabbit doing it.
Brian had that like had that already scripted? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Carry on. Sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you.
I don't remember now. I would have to have a look at the script again to see. But I don't recall now if I was the one that split it up into the three panels to show the motion of Bugs, you know, switching his legs
Bugs'
over.
motion.
Yeah, or if that was actually, if that is exactly as it was written, because it could also be. But whatever it was, I remember drawing that page and going, I don't know if people are going to get this. But then once we got the lettered and colored version, you know, for us to do a preview check over, I remember reading it and going, that lands perfectly. You know,
Great.
it
Yeah.
works well, and anybody who knows that movie is going to get it, I think. And boy did they get it, you know, like
Yep.
online. So I'll tell you some things that I got educated on there that I learned about, which I can tell you about.
Sure.
But was this whole furry community that's out there
Oh
in the
yeah.
world, which the furries just had an absolute field day with that, and I mean, I never knew that I could turn so many people on with simple drawings online, you know,
This is
and
innocent, fun children's programming, John. I don't know where these people's minds were.
I didn't when I was drawing it, I 100% was not thinking of it in any sexual
Sure.
sort of a way. I just thought of it as a funny
Yeah.
callback, you know, to that movie, and it's a total Bugs Bunny thing to do. You know, he's a
Oh
smart ass,
yeah.
and
Yep.
you know, and but these guys, they were redrawing it and adding ball sacks, and I don't
Oh,
know, are we allowed
geez.
to talk about this stuff here? But
Yeah, you say whatever you
the,
want.
the carrot, you know, was definitely a euphemism for lots of things that are carrot shaped. We'll put it like that. And
Yeah, there you go.
yeah, for a good 2 or 3 days, my Twitter was just going nuts because this thing had millions of views and was shared all over the world. And Screen Rant, I think, did an article about it.
I was gonna say I remember seeing some kind of article. I forget what the headline about it even was, and I just started laughing because I was like, oh boy,
Yeah.
all right,
Well, it was funny because the article looked like I was like, here we go. This is gonna be a controversial thing, you know. Like people, it was one of those clickbait sort of headings
yeah,
where if you only read that, you would think that they're saying, you know, how dare DC Comics put this in a kids comic? Like that's horrible. But the article was actually very positive and saying how it perfectly suited Bugs Bunny as a character, and it's something that he would
yeah.
do. And yeah, it was a very good positive article in the end, and I don't know, it was fun. It was fun to see people's again reaction
Reactions.
to it, which is always better than people going, you know, hearing the crickets, I guess. So
Yeah. Well, I think it's also it fits right in perfectly with Bugs and also like Looney Tunes because I distinctly remember uh a nod to Pulp Fiction in Space Jam.
right. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
I don't know how old I was, 9, 8, something like that. I
yeah,
hadn't seen Pulp Fiction yet, at
yeah.
that age, and I just thought it was funny, just however they did it, and because I think it was, it was like
Was it the dance?
Elmer.
They're always doing
No,
that, you know. That was
no,
in a lot
they
of
did
shows.
they shot one of the monsters with like black guns, and then it cuts to feel like it's Elmer and God, I don't know the other one, and they're in um Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta's black suits. They have the sunglasses on, and the
Oh,
music goes down, 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 and their guns are like smoking. And I just thought it was hilarious. And
yeah,
then, I get older, and then it was always like the Pulp Fiction music. No, it was like, oh, that was in Space Jam. It wasn't like the other way around. So that's just like a long example
that's
of
funny.
like where I feel like that's Looney Tunes. That's the point of Looney Tunes and Bugs, is to do something like that. Do something like this Basic Instinct. It's not like you drew something on Bugs when his legs were open. Like you didn't do any
No,
of that. It was just Bugs being a smartass because that's what he does. So
yeah.
I love that I got it, and I think that's the funniest joke for sure in the
I'm trying to
book.
remember what he. Oh, here we go. Look at that. I opened it straight to that page.
You have it bookmarked?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because Batman's asking him if he's naked. He goes, because Bugs talks about his outfit, and he goes, "My outfit, you're naked." Oh, am I? And then that's when he does the basic instinct thing. I don't know. It's kind of like asking us this question of, are these guys running around naked? Does Donald Duck have no
Oh,
pants?
Donald ducking it. Yeah.
That whole thing. So it's quite funny, but that's cool. Now that we're talking about this and it's refreshing my memory, I think Brian threw so many jokes in there, so many things like one after the other, and there's so many little Easter eggs and all of that in there that um, it's kind of one of those books that it maybe rewards multiple readings because you catch more of that stuff as you go through, I guess,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. So yeah, for me, obviously, as the person that was working it and drawing it, I think I understood all the jokes that were in there and that sort of thing. Hopefully, I did.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of it from the perspective of somebody that didn't have the script and
Yeah.
which jokes they would get. So there's probably stuff in there that not everyone's going to get for sure. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Well, I also love the attention to detail, which I guess I'd expect, um, a writer to know, and all of us know Bugs Bunny, but even as much as some of the dialogue, even in that interrogation page or whatever, and Bugs is like, clearly, I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque, and it's like
Yeah,
for people that are fans and have watched stuff with that, they know that I forget where it is in here, and he even references something about like, I'm usually always called the stinker. Right here. Oh, he repeatedly copped to being nothing more than a stinker. Batman says that
yes,
about Bugs Bunny. It's like, because that's one of his, like, and that is a gift that's all over the place now, too. Is like, ain't I a stinker? And he's doing like this or something like that's so
okay,
Bugs Bunny. Like, the little things like that for some of these characters that, that aren't Batman, I
yeah.
found like charming, like it made the book more fun and it
Oh, that's
enhanced it.
cool.
So that's
Yeah,
what I mean. Like
that's
I had
awesome.
such a blast with this, and I'm like, man, I don't know how much of this is reliant on the video game or not. I don't care because I like
Yeah,
this is a blast. It's fun stuff.
I think you can really just look at it as this weird crossover book that happened with lots of different characters, from
Hmm.
different cartoon universes. Because, um, like I actually still to this day haven't actually played the game.
Yeah.
I watched lots of video of it and that sort of thing, but I didn't really have the time to be sitting there. And it's probably something that I would get addicted to and then play lots of, So
Yep.
it's best
Yep.
if I didn't. But there were I was just thinking now there was something that one page where I did get something wrong, and I kind of wish I'd known about it before I'd drawn the page, which was right at the end when we introduced Joker, when Joker first comes into the story, and in the script, Brian had written Harley and no, so Joker is sitting in a duck blind. And I just had no idea what the hell a duck blind is. I've never. Are you familiar with that term? Do you know what that
No.
is?
No,
Okay,
I'm not
yeah.
familiar.
So I thought maybe it was a very American thing or something like that, but
Oh, is
apparently what it is
Brian American?
he is, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. I
It's
didn't know. Yeah.
I found out after. So if you look at in the book, I've drawn Joker, and he's just sitting in a sort of just a shack,
Hmm.
and then outside of the door you can see where Harley and Poison Ivy are living, but they were the ones that are supposed to be living in a shack in the swamp. and Joker is hiding in this thing called a duck blind, which is it's basically a little small structure that hunters will hide in when they're shooting ducks. And so he's supposed to be spying on them with binoculars, but because I
Ah,
didn't know what this was, I've drawn him just
yeah.
in a house, like his own little shack there, and I was like, why wouldn't they see his shack? Like like
Yeah.
there's
Worked
no
for
other
me.
house anywhere around, and Joker, like, of course they're gonna know that Joker was sitting there the whole time. But anyway,
It was
hopefully not
stormy. They couldn't see. There was lightning. It
exactly.
was
Yeah, and
raining.
he
It was
built it
night.
really quick.
Well,
It was a
it
it was an Acme shack.
yeah, exactly. It's funny that that's what you brought up because I had that exact page ready to ask you, but I was going to ask about that part.
Ah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and what I'm pointing at is Joker coming out of the Porky Pig, That's All Folks, Looney Tunes, Merry Melodies circle.
Yes.
Because that to me is like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Like that's great. Was that a you thing? Was it a Brian thing? Was it a both of you thing?
That was in the script. I
That was in
remember.
script too.
So he had just have him coming out of the Looney Tunes thing, and
Yep.
I thought, yeah, that's a really cool visual,
Yeah.
and very
It's
simple. Just draw a few circles and leave it up to Matt, the colorist. He did his thing and made it really look like the the,
mhm.
the thing that we remember from the cartoon show. So yeah,
Yeah. It's such a small thing, but I mean, yeah, that's what I keep going back to of those like the small details that I get, except for 1080p. Those are things that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's fun. That's fun. Like knowing that who's creating this are also fans, and I think the little touches are what you just kind of get a vibe of like, oh, they're having fun too. Like they're
yeah.
having fun with this too. Like awesome.
We That's 100% the name of the game. Like for me, any project that I've worked on, and I've worked on stuff that I wasn't a fan of or I hadn't heard of before, especially earlier on in my career. There was a book called Free Realms that I worked on, which was also based on a computer game, and I think I ended up playing about 64 hours or something like that, clocking up on this
That's
game,
it.
just to just over the span of working on it, just because I really something that I remember as a kid was if I saw something that was based on something that I really liked, So if they, for example, did I don't know, if I saw a Super Mario Brothers comic or a
Yeah.
Zelda comic or something, and they just got all the details wrong, whether it's parts of the suits, the outfits, the designs, or part of that world, or they've introduced some random character that had nothing to do with it.
Hmm.
Those things would really bug me as a fan. I hated seeing that. I hated when they took Masters of the Universe and did that live action movie with it, or the Mario Brothers movie. That's probably a better example. And I that's something that I very much have in my mind. So when I work on a project, I want to become a fan of it, even if I'm
Hmm.
not.
Yeah.
So in this comic here, I was not familiar with Steven Universe or any of those characters. I'd never
Me
watched that
neither.
cartoon. And so my goal was just to try and be as faithful as I could to the designs, that I could see references of. I got a few things wrong here and there, I think, because like on my cover that I did for the very first issue, the version that I've drawn with his pink jacket is
Hmm.
actually supposed to be that character in the future, but I had no idea. And so
Uh,
that sent all of those fans ablaze, like they're all talking about, they're going to put future Steven Universe in the game. Like this confirms it. And I was like, oh shit, what have I done?
whoops.
Like I've drawn the wrong version.
He ruined my childhood. How dare you, John?
But so I there you go. Like I tried as hard as I could with all that stuff, and I always do. And
Sure.
eventually, something like that's gonna slip through the cracks. I don't think people minded too much, to be honest. With that one, they sort of had a bit more of a go at with the character Garnet, who's Steven Universe's partner, the lady
Hmm.
with the big afro hair. And apparently, one of the key core elements of that character is that she never asks questions, and she's asking questions all throughout
Wow.
our comics. So that didn't go
How
down too well.
dare you? How
Anyway,
dare you? Oh my. Well, you mentioned covers. I
yes.
wanted to ask about that too. Like what's the process behind the covers? Because it does show, I think, um, were your covers the variant covers and Dan Mora's were the cover A?
Yes, that's
So
right. Yeah.
how does a cover discussion, especially if like you're the, because that's always it's always been my thing is like I want the cover to match the interior. It's just been my
Yeah.
OCD always, and I think Dan
No,
Mora is fantastic. I love his art and stuff too, but it's like, well, the artist of the book is doing the covers. It surprises me that that's not cover A. Like, it just I couldn't wrap my head around it.
yeah, look, you're absolutely 100% right. I think this is a problem that we have in the industry. Actually, personally, that's my view. Is that the cover should be drawn by the interior artist. The A cover should always be by the same
Yeah,
guy that's drawing the inside. Because as a fan, you go to the comic shop, a cover attracts you. You go and pick it up, and then you open it up, and there's a completely different artist on the inside. You kind of feel like there's been a bit of a bait and switch that's happened
yeah,
there or something, you know.
yep,
Now, I'm also of the opinion that if you're not good enough to draw the covers, maybe you shouldn't be drawing the insides. You know, that's my point of view. I think you should be capable of doing both. That's a big part of our job. And I am a cover artist. I have done multiple covers, and I've been on the other side of that, where I'm the guy that's
sure,
drawing the covers to try and get people to pick a project up in the first place. Now, I think the variant covers are cool, but like you're saying, I think the A should be done by the artist of the inside. That's something that they've earned. Now, of course, DC, their way of thinking is we should get somebody with a big name and somebody that has a huge following, which is Dan Mora. You know, you can't take that away from him. He's
yeah,
an incredible, accomplished artist. He's so prolific. He's done some of the best work that we're seeing out there at the moment. I mean, it's just incredible
yeah.
the amount of work that this guy is able to produce at a high quality. And so I can totally see why DC would want to get him on there. And they early on got me to do the cover for issue 1 as a variant cover. That was always supposed to be a retailer incentive.
Hmm.
So I do feel flattered in terms of they see my work as something that's desirable enough that they know that people are gonna hopefully chase those covers, and therefore hopefully retailers end up ordering more copies to end up with one of those, you know. Um, and then they like once I was finished with the project, they actually asked me to do the rest of the covers for the rest of the series, which obviously I
Nice.
was very happy about, and I wanted to do. And then I think at a certain point, I think I mentioned to them, is there any way that I can get more of these, because they're my covers and they're the ones that people want to come and buy from me, or I can
Yeah.
sign them and send them to people, whatever. And they ended up making the covers for issue 5 and 6. They were just regular covers that you didn't have to order a certain amount of, and
Okay.
you could just order them as it was, which was nice, you know, that people were able to do that. So yeah, look, I'm glad that I did get to do the covers for it, because this is the pretty much since the very first project I ever worked on, this was the first time that I didn't get to do my own covers for it,
Yeah.
and it was something that I asked about. But in the end, you know, I did do covers in
Yeah.
some way, and
Exactly. And they're
yeah,
they're included, and I'm glad they're included like in the trade collection too. You know, they don't
totally, yeah,
always give the it's whatever cover A was, that's in the trade and that's it. So you don't even see them. So I'm glad that they're at least in here. And I know I just
yeah,
contradicted myself with my stance, my hard stance on comics. And I just, 40 minutes ago said, I bought your variant cover of Plot Holes that Sean Murphy drew the interiors. So clearly I'm guilty of it too. But it's like, but I have his collected story of Plot Holes already. And then I saw your cover and I was like, well, how am I not going to get it if I can?
yeah,
Um,
that's very cool. Yeah,
so
look, I think it's all part of the game at the moment, you
sure.
know, and I love that people are very excited about collecting the different covers and all that sort of stuff, and I think I don't think it's a bad thing that there are
Yeah.
those covers. It creates more jobs for other artists and all that sort of thing, and you get to have a play around with things that maybe you normally wouldn't have drawn. But I think there should always be, like I said, you know, just that one cover by the interior artist that's available as well for people that want to, I don't know, support that
Yeah.
person's work or whatever it is, you know, or at least have that on the shelf. And if somebody grabs it and they look at the inside, it's going to be the exact same thing. For me, that's an instant buy. You
Yeah.
know, if I grab the book because it caught my eye and the inside looks the same, I'm like, boom, that's it. I'm going to
Yep.
take it because I already liked what I saw from the beginning, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got some questions for you because I haven't been asking you questions. But it's I think it's an injustice to ask a writer or especially an artist to be asking about favorites. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll reword it and
Okay.
say funnest, maybe something you were looking forward to the most, etc. I would never ask you to pick a favorite on anything that you did in this book. But you can say it if you feel that way. Was there
I mean,
a
if I don't say
character? Go
Batman
ahead.
on
I'll give you a pass.
if I don't say Batman on this podcast, it's going to be a 5-year ban again, isn't it? From the last time I was.
Well, let's see who messages who on November 22nd this year. And
Ah,
then we'll talk, okay?
let me think. So I think I probably enjoyed drawing Bugs the most,
Great.
just because I had not drawn him before, and he just, I mean, you could just have so much fun with everything that he's doing.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, let's see, a favorite. I mean, that's
That's a good answer.
really good. I liked I actually really enjoyed drawing the witch, believe it or not, just
Oh
because
yeah.
the shapes of her face and her expressions, and I kind of was able to have a bit of fun with that. And the funny thing is, as far as I know, the witch never even ended up being in the game in the end, and I don't know if that had something to do with the Wicked movie coming out,
Oh yeah.
or
Huh.
this is all way above my pay grade,
Yeah.
but obviously because we worked on this way before we even knew that there was going to be a Wicked movie, and we'd heard a rumor that the witch was supposed to be in there, and that was one of the characters that got approved. So I have no idea what
Yeah.
happened there.
That's
No,
interesting.
no clue at all. But yeah, it's
Had
she was fun to draw.
had you worked with Matt Herms before?
Yeah, so Matt colored. The first time we worked together was on the issue 6 of the Batman Turtles crossover.
Okay.
So he came in and did when we did the style shift. He came and colored that. His colors just always stood out to me, and
Mm-hmm.
I brought him on actually to work on this for DC, and I think he's been doing quite a lot of work for DC since then, which has been really cool to
Nice.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. He's got just a really great color sensibility and palette, and
I
really brought the style forward. So
I think your guys' work like it pairs together really well. And I think because how you just said of like the Wicked Witch was fun to draw, quickly in my head was obviously she's green, but like that it just really
yeah,
popped in a really like cool way. And yeah, that was something that I'd meant to ask too, because I was like I really enjoy the I don't know, the combination of yours and his totally, like I said, just complements each other really well, I thought.
yeah, yeah. That's cool. Yeah, I'm sure we'll cross paths again in the future, and that. I mean, maybe I've got a thing for green skinned characters. I don't know.
Hey, oh, oh, let's calm down here. Let's see. I'd almost say, did you have a location that you were looking forward to drawing the most?
Location. Not particularly.
Okay.
I mean, it was when I got to draw the car chase scene. I think part of the
Yeah.
reason that I really enjoyed that so much was because it did take place in Gotham, and my version of Gotham is very much based on what we see from the Bruce Timm cartoon, the animated series, and it was just really fun revisiting that world again,
Yeah.
and the red skies, and the nice Art Deco
Hmm.
buildings and all of that. So that's where I almost felt at home there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Oh, it makes so much sense. I mean, like there just that image, I think for um I don't know how many years separates you and I, but I think it's a wider generation, but I think everybody under that there's magic with the animated series. So you
yeah,
see something of the animated series and it's an instant like, oh, yes,
yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, like I've always said, that for me was my definitive version of Batman from the
Hmm.
beginning. Was the animated series. That's the one that really I connected with the most and just got me into it, because I think I was watching that cartoon before I even really started reading comic books. So and it wasn't until I think we might have talked about it last time, if I recall, I think until Jim Lee's Hush came out that I
Hmm.
really started reading some Batman comics, and I've had a few since then that I've read in between and all of that. I think, Sean's stuff, obviously I read that.
Yeah.
Uh, Tom, Taylor, like following some of his work,
Yeah.
he's done quite a lot with the Batman world. And I think that annual that he did, the 2018 annual, that's probably one of my favorite Batman stories with
Nice.
Otto Schmidt on the art. Just everything's perfect in that one. I don't know if you remember it. It's a really nice story with it's like a Happy Father's Day type thing, and Alfred is basically Batman realizes that that's being his dad his whole life, that sort of thing. Really cool, really cool story.
Man, I read all of that, and I'm blanking right now on which one
2018
it
annual.
is. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Everybody, let's just hold tight while I look this up, and I'll scan the like. Oh yeah, now I remember. Okay. No, the cover's familiar, but I gotta revisit that because I'm blanking on the inside. Okay,
Yeah.
good to know. Note that
As
down.
a little one-shot Batman
Yeah,
story, it's just beautiful. It's a
good stuff.
nice, neat little package, and Tom's writing. He does
Hmm.
his thing. He's got all the heart and one-liners and all that sort of stuff in there. So it's very cool.
And since you've worked with him too, do you hold that in or do you tell him of like, listen, Tom, Batman Annual in 2018, that is legit, or do you just kind of keep it in and play it cool? Like, okay, what do you want me to draw?
I think I might have mentioned it to him
Yeah.
once before when we've been chatting. Like, as probably we might have been discussing different artists that he's worked with, and I just said, "Oh, I loved the thing that you did with Otto Schmidt," and
Hmm.
some sort of a conversation we might have talked about like that. But yeah, I don't know. He knows I'm a fan of his.
Yeah, 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 can you say, is there going to be another Neverlanders book?
Yeah, so like literally right now, I'm
Okay,
currently working on book two. So I
great.
don't know for
Yes,
anyone that actually sees this. There's the page I'm working on today.
nice,
So that's going to be coming out a little later this year.
perfect.
We have there's a lot of really really exciting stuff that's happening around Neverlanders and those characters in that world. Stuff that we're not
That's
talking
good.
about just yet or anything like that. But yeah, it's just been just a really rewarding experience to work on something creator owned and having it take off among a new generation of comic fans and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's
Trying to,
really cool.
I'm listening to you, but I'm also trying to find because I'm pretty sure. Okay, so yeah, I've gone back and forth between Instagram and Twitter of sending you messages,
Oh,
but
okay.
there it is. Okay. Oops. October 14th, 2022. Uncle John. Finally just finished Neverlanders. It was delightful. I hope more will come in the future, and seems like you tweeted recently that that may be the case. And then I sent a picture of like the haunted aisle where every night is Halloween.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
said, for what it's worth, I'd love more of this. And he said,
Ah,
thanks for letting me know. Much appreciated. We certainly have plans for the haunted aisle.
yeah,
That excited me because I love Halloween. I love Halloween settings and all that. And like that image alone is like, oh my gosh, more of this. And so when you said we have more plans, I was like, okay.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So
Well, look, I could give you an update on that. You're probably gonna have to wait for book three there. Damn it!
come on. I thought we had a good thing going here. All right. Well, you're not lying to me though.
Um,
You said we have plans for it, and your plans
yeah,
are
we
book
do.
three.
We've literally Tom and I have definitely discussed that particular part of Neverland and yeah, I mean it lends itself to some really really fun, cool visuals and all that sort of
Cool.
thing. But yeah, with this book we're exploring a bigger part of the whole world that we've set up there and having a lot of fun with it as well. So I'm really
Awesome.
excited for that book to finally be out because as you can see, so 2022 was when I would have finished the other one. I probably would have been in the middle of working on Multiversus then, so that was like a good 8 months there or so. Had a kid in between that time
Oh
as
my
well,
goodness.
So
That's kind of a
it's
big deal.
been pretty busy, and
Yeah.
yeah, so we're now, definitely in the last sort of third of book two and furiously getting it done now because we've got a looming deadline and all that sort of stuff. And I'll tell you something, you're probably not going to like to hear this, but
Uh-oh.
I've unfortunately had to turn down two really, really cool Batman gigs that I would have loved to work on so badly because hey, when I say I'm going to do something, I get it done,
I
and
respect
even
that. I respect it, but
it was
now
really, really hard, really, really hard to, if you could imagine working on a core book like, Brave and the Bold or something like that.
Mhm.
Just would have been something really. But I figured, I've got a good relationship with these guys, and I'll reach out to them when I'm free. Once I'm done with
Yeah,
this stuff, and sneak a couple of little stories in there, hopefully,
yeah.
and then see what's
These,
next.
I've already confessed I won't push, but are these projects that you had to pass on, have they already come to fruition or it's
I believe
still
so. Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, they would have found someone else to do them, and
Gotcha.
they already came out. But I'm talking. These things popped up literally while I'm at the hospital, and my wife is giving birth. And that sort of thing. And I'm like, now's
You
not a good
can't.
time,
No.
guys.
I'm gonna try and be very polite. Not now.
Yeah.
Not now, please. All right, that's cool. Is Neverlander's always that was originally released as the collected book, right? Because that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, and they will be
Yeah.
released
So
that way.
there's a free comic book day version that you can get of the first chapter of the book,
Yeah.
which came out just before the actual book came out. And then, but then, yeah, the plan was always for it to be a straight up graphic novel, which
Okay.
it's a whole challenge in itself because it's
Yeah.
almost like the equivalent of I'm gonna go climb Mount Everest, and do this 200 pages of artwork, and nobody's gonna see what I'm working on. I don't get any feedback from it. I'll just disappear for a while.
Yeah.
And as an artist who sort of your bread and butter is feeding the masses on social media, like giving little snippets of work here and there, and showing that you're still doing stuff. You got to kind of switch that part of your brain off a little bit, and just be cool with not being in the spotlight for a while.
Yeah.
And it can be a tricky thing because I you do feel a little bit of anxiety sometimes of people even going to remember who I am by the time this project comes out.
Hmm.
Whereas with the monthly comics, the beauty of it is that it's almost like a constant billboard of this is coming out this month. So, and that's advertising the next one and the next one, and it's
Yeah.
just this constant cycle of in your face every month. This is coming out, and it's a different way of thinking about things, and you really got to think long term when it comes to this stuff. What are the benefits of it? And really, that was my whole decision making process for taking on this project in the first place. When Tom initially approached me about it, was I want something that I can create that I co-own, with
Hmm.
my writing partner, and something we're gonna reap the benefits of it for
Yeah.
years to come down the line. And that comes through putting lots of these books out because for me, it does take a long time to work on them, but I want these books to be the best work that I can possibly do. I want them to look beautiful because these are something that is going to sit on a kid's shelf and hopefully be passed down to future generations as well. So it's not
Yeah.
like this quick throwaway thing where we're just trying to get a monthly comic done. It's something that I hope will stand the test of time,
Yeah.
and so
That's great.
far with the first book, we it's amazing that we have been given these accolades. We've won awards and prizes and things like that, which I never set out to do. I'm not a prize winning guy. That's not something that I ever thought was in me. But the quality has been recognized by these bodies that look at this sort of stuff, and I really appreciate that because it's
Yeah.
very validating after
Yeah.
20 years of slugging it, and finally people are going, hey, there's this guy in Australia that's drawing comics, and he's not
He's
too
all
bad
right.
at it.
He's all right.
Yeah.
Get him a cheeseburger. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, I want my cheeseburgers, extra pickles.
Okay, noted. Let me write it down. Extra pickles. When I show up in Orlando, I'll show up at Disney World. I'll miss the con, but I'll show up at Disney
Uh,
World.
yeah.
I got you your burger and pickles. Let's see. I had a couple more here with multiverses, and then I don't want to keep you too much longer.
Yeah, all good. Let's go.
Let's see. I said favorite location. Did you looking back on you can answer this twofold or not. Was there an issue you were looking most forward to drawing and or was there one after the fact that became your favorite or ended up being the most fun?
Mm. Um, I wasn't really anticipating anything at all with this project because I had no idea where it was going or what was really happening as we were drawing it in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I initially really what I was looking forward to the most was drawing certain characters that then I didn't get to draw. And so that was a I don't know 10-minute disappointment or something, where when I found out about it I was like, oh well, we'll just move on and make the most of what we
Yeah.
do have here. Um, Really, that car chase scene is the thing that I'm the most proud of
Yeah.
in that issue. But there is stuff that happens later on in issue 6. I think issue 6 art wise was maybe my most solid work. Where I really was in the groove and the ink pens were just flowing. So there's really nice line work in there and all that sort of stuff. I got to explore the fourth world stuff to its full, conclusion there. We got to draw Big Barda and
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Miracle in there, which was really fun, and I got to do my sort of take on those characters. So that was pretty, like, when I look back at it, that was some of the stuff that's fun, and I like looking at obviously the original art of those pages, and I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
that's where I get to draw Big Barda, like that's kind of
Yeah.
cool. These are all characters that I would love to get a chance to explore in, but I think for me the next step is, in terms of mainstream comics, I just want to draw like the core actual comic book versions of these characters now, that go into
Yeah.
canon and live as part of the history of
Mm-hmm.
these characters going in the future. So
Would it?
we'll see.
I mean, you're working on, Neverlanders too. Do you think that you'd enjoy a task of taking on an ongoing series, ongoing monthly series?
Yeah, uh, the I think so. I mean, that's always my goal, and I'd love to do that. I think there are a few challenges there. Obviously, like currently, having a young family. I don't know what the look. If I can give you any advice, have kids younger than older,
Okay, noted.
if you can, because I like I'm getting I'm on the road to 50 now, and we've got a 7-month-old little
Yeah.
beautiful girl here.
All
So
right.
it's fun, but it's that does not help with a job that's very demanding with long hours
Yeah.
and all that sort of thing. So I'm basically sacrificing my sleep, which again, the older you get, like the harder that becomes. So you got to figure that out. For me, I think the ideal situation would be in a perfect world. I would love to do a monthly book, 12 issues in a row, whatever it is. I would have an inker working with me, somebody preferably that's local that I can just hand off pencil pages to and they ink them, because I think keeping this original art
Yeah.
market and the tradition of doing original art is very important, especially in this AI world, where
Yep. Yeah.
that's it's just cheapening in a way what it is that artists have done, like the work that goes into becoming an artist, and finding a style and all of that. And so, yeah, I would love to get a run on a core book, something that matters, team up with an excellent writer, and just put out the work of our career. You know what I mean, like that sort of thing. And for me, back here, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I've got
Hmm.
a bookshelf, and that little cabinet there, that's all projects that I've worked on over the years. And for me, there's no greater pleasure than grabbing a book. It's got my name on the spine, and that's another one to add to the collection. Like
Yeah.
that's a body of work there, and I'm very proud of that. And so getting to do that on something, like doing a good solid run and getting that under my belt, that's definitely a goal of mine. One of many
Yeah.
goals that I have.
All right. Well,
But
we'll make it happen. Well, that's almost like a good spot to wrap up, but I've got like an impossible question for you.
okay,
So, hypothetically, somebody comes to
yes.
you, says, John, you can pick your writer.
Hmm.
You can pick what kind of story, whether it's a 12 issue, 6 issue, one graphic novel. It's all up to you. Everything's up to you. but you got to choose. Would it be a Batman story or a Ninja Turtle story?
Ooh, why do you do this to
I
me?
know. It's impossible. That's tough. For me, it's
Uh,
possible, but it would still hurt because I told
yeah,
you, many years ago, whatever, and you can, as he can see behind me, his buddy Sean Murphy's on the, his is framed on the bottom, John's is on the top.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I like Batman has been my number one, but I actually like Turtles was my first, like I went insane over Turtles. And then I went to
Mm,
Batman, but Turtles are have always been right behind Batman. So I'd always
awesome.
go Batman, but it'd be like I'd still feel a little wrong, like I did my Turtles wrong.
But
Could you
how
pick? Could
cool
you?
is that there's been several projects now where you don't have to make that choice, and you've got
I know. It's
the
just,
two of them crossing over.
I think my bookshelf right outside this door. I
Yeah,
have the turtle shelf, and I've got the Tynan and your pal Freddie Williams. I've got that omnibus, and then I've got yours and Matthew Manning's book right next to it. And it's like these are
yeah,
always, because sometimes you have to do shuffling with bookshelves because space is a problem. Those are never put away. They're always
yeah.
there because that is
That's cool.
almost like that's a happy place of those two, because it is
Yeah,
the equivalent of when you had the toys and there were no rules or lawyers. It was like, no, Batman's fighting a Ninja Turtle and a GI Joe, and Hulk Hogan is gonna come in off the top rope and he's gonna, he's gonna take them
absolutely.
all
Yeah,
out.
yeah, that's true. I never thought of it like that, but it absolutely is just living out that whole childhood thing. If you got your toy box and all the different action figures, and it doesn't matter what they're from, like you've got I would have my Ninja Turtles surfing on top of Micro Machines cars,
Yep.
and like,
Yeah.
and we had GI Joe mixed in the mix as well, and all that sort of thing. So, and I thought it was really cool how Freddie he got the big Turtles Batman piece that him and Kevin Eastman and myself we did together.
Yeah.
That's actually published in there, which was really cool to see. But yeah, look, I don't think I'm done with the Turtles in my career. I'm sure I'd like to cross paths with them again in the future, and
Hmm.
the Batman stuff is sort of it's already you know been offered to me as it is,
Hmm.
and I'd love to revisit that world again in whatever way that is possible. So, we'll see what happens in the future. It's hard to say.
That was a
Right now, I
perfect
got to get
answer.
through this
You
other
said
one,
it
but yeah,
both. You basically just said both. And you know what?
that's it.
That's the right answer. I think that's the
We
right
don't need to
answer.
pick.
Yep.
You had
I'm
me sweating like that meme
yeah,
for a second.
I could see it. And so I was, because of that answer, I'm gonna put this episode out unedited. So
Yeah.
I don't have to censor you at all. This, I mean, this has been 4.5 years in the making. I'm glad that this finally happened. Glad I finally got to talk to you.
Yeah,
I hope it's not
yeah,
another 4 years. You don't,
yeah.
you can just come back to pick up, we can talk that annual story if you want or something. Like the invite's always here. You can always come
Thank
and chat. You don't have to wait for me, but I just know that you're a busy man. You just said you got a 7-month-year-old child and you're sacrificing sleep. I don't necessarily expect, John, let's come talk comic books with me. Come on.
you.
She'll be fine for
Uh,
an hour.
it's always a pleasure catching up with you and having a chat and all that sort of
Yes, sir.
stuff. So I'm sure this isn't the last time we're gonna
Knock
talk
on wood.
in this forum, hopefully. So
Capacity.
I'm sure we're gonna talk online anyway and keep in touch like that. But
Yes, sir.
yeah, I'm sure we'll have a little check in again in the future and see how we go.
Let's do at least by November or in November, right?
Maybe I'll see you in person if you do make your way to one of these shows at some
He's
point.
like, pack up. We got a weekend trip. Okay, we're gonna go to Orlando. I'm gonna say hi, and then we're gonna just drive right back. I think that's like
Yeah.
from here. What is it? Like a 16 or 17 hour drive.
Do you guys have any
Gig.
do you have any big shows in your area?
Chicago C2E2.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, that's a big
I
one.
talk about that. People probably are sick of me talking about it on here because I just that was my first one that I'd been to, and that is uh from now. So when this episode drops, I think it's going to be that upcoming weekend, but I mean it's a couple weeks away from right now. And
Okay,
so I think Sean's going to be there, but I know Tom King, who I hadn't met in person, but I've had him on the show before. He's going to be there.
cool.
Mitch Gerrits, David Finch, Klaus
Okay,
Janson. They've got some heavy hitters. So
yeah, for
I'm going to go
sure.
get some stuff signed.
I know. So the very first show that I ever did over in the States was
Mhm.
actually Chicago Wizard World. So this is back in 2002, I think. And so I got very fond memories of doing that show. So I did 2002 and then 2003, and that was around the time where I broke in as well. And I haven't been back to Chicago since then. And there's
Yeah.
a cheeseburger place there too, the
Oh
famous
yeah.
cheeseburger. So
You're right.
I've got a good
They
reason to get back to Chicago.
Yeah, there and I'd always heard of so C2E2 and I think and Wizard World of like, oh yeah, Chicago has two really big ones every year, blah blah blah. And then I think Wizard just died out. Maybe
Yeah,
COVID put it down, permanently. I don't know.
yeah.
Maybe it was right before that. I don't know, but I'd always heard of Wizard World because I was like, which one should I go to? Well, it made it an easy decision because there's only one,
Yeah.
and it was C2E2. I mean, there's more
You,
conventions, but you understand what I mean.
you're probably like a primary school kid back in those days, 2002.
Let's see.
You
2002. I
would
was a
have been
sophomore in
traveling on
high
your own,
school.
surely. What's that?
No, not on
Uh,
not on my own doing. I'd had just gotten my
yeah.
license, and there'd have been absolutely no way my parents would have let me drive to Chicago. Would not have happened. Uh, as for you, like, what is? I mean, plug away. First of all, are you still active on Twitter? I know you are on Instagram.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
both of those.
I still post stuff on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it.
Hmm.
I love watching the dumpster fire that's happening over there as well. But really, my way of thinking is, I want to my whole existence is brightening up places a little bit more if I can,
Hmm.
just through my artwork. That's what I'm here for. It's what I do. I have you know I love looking at art and I love sharing my art with the world. And if that helps somebody have a little bit of a better day, that's a good thing. So I'm not going to go away from doing it, even though it's a bit of a cesspool over there.
Hmm.
And then Instagram again, like I'm trying to get my stuff seen as much as possible when Zuckerberg opens a tap a little bit and lets people come in.
Yeah.
And what else? I post on all different social media things. I've got a Facebook page. I'm
Mhm.
on Blue Sky as well. And I share my art around the place as much as possible. And aside from that, I'm appearing at conventions here and there. I've got a few Aussie shows that are coming up during the year. I'll be going to another foreign country, which we can't mention at this time, but
All right.
it's happening soon. And then I'll be in the States in September, back in the good old States. I'll come and
Got it.
check in on you guys,
All right.
see how things are going.
Okay. Well, good luck on those travels. And I'll reiterate that the DC Multiversus Collision Detected trade paperback
Yes.
collection is out now, and it's worth it. Definitely worth it. So,
Yeah, check it out. It's fun.
Jon Sommariva, thanks again. Thanks for coming back on here.
No worries. Thank you for having me and good to chat to you.
Yes, sir.